Good morning. My name is Nigel Hodges. I'm a case manager with Impact Family Counseling. I've been case managing for 6 years here now. And I have alongside with me, he'll be able to introduce himself, is my colleague, my friend, my brother, Mr. Carmone Owens. And we're going to talk to you a little bit today about communication. And that's such a wide open topic to discuss. So we won't be able to get to everything today, but we're going to try to, spend a few moments of just trying to hit in some highlights. Brother Carmone, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Carmone Owens, colleague of Nigel, used to be lead facilitator here at Impact, also formerly a case manager at Impact. And now I currently do violence intervention. And communications is such a huge, important topic because it really affects every aspect of our lives. There is no part of your life that good communications or bad communications does not directly impact and change your outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you highlighted those things, the good communication and bad communication, because even when it's not done well, there's still some communication happening. And the thing is though, I'm not sure if a lot of us realize that even without saying words, we're communicating in an unhealthy manner. So, and I want to be careful here when I say this, but I think you agree with me, bro, because we've had this conversation numerous times. Like, generally speaking, as males, and communication applies to everyone, everyone, like Brother Carmone said, in every aspect, every situation. But just generally speaking, as males, would you agree that when we look at, our generation and beyond especially, that good, healthy communication didn't always take place for men to their sons.
Oh no.
Because you're like, from the time we were like could speak, if we fall and hurt ourselves and we want to cry, big boys don't cry, men don't cry.
Walk it off.
Walk it off. So what do you think that did to us in general context as men, as far as our communication skills go?
Particularly in our community, in our culture, you're taught to stuff your feelings. I mean, one of my mother's pattern expressions was, shut that crying up before I give you something to cry for. So now you're learning not to express your emotions, to detach yourself from your emotions and to deny your emotions. So that when you get older, this has a very significant impact in relationships and how you parent your children, how you deal with the boss and supervisors and the coworkers, how you accept correction. It's just a wide, and it's one of those things called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And it follows you throughout life. So then now you have a learned behavior, and what you don't want to repeat, you find yourself doing this with your own children and wonder why we have the outcomes we have.
Absolutely, man. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Especially, like you said, in the relationship aspect of it, because, like I said, I'm just saying from a general perspective, this doesn't apply to everyone, but so many times those of us males who were raised up that way, not to express our emotions, now we get, unless something happens along the way, because like you said, we have ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, but there's also positive childhood experiences. So unless somewhere along the way, this journey through life, we learn the communication skills, which we'll try to get into in a moment, then we get into relationships where we don't know how to express ourselves because we've been taught to hide certain emotions. So now we only know how to express the anger or the dislike for something, but we don't necessarily learn how to say, this hurt, this embarrassed me, my feelings are hurt, from a situation. So now let's get into this healthy communication, which effective communication. How would you kind of give a general definition of that?
A healthy communication is when you're able to adequately express yourself, yet still be under control. There's a term called an emotional coward. And some people take that as a harsh term. But emotional coward, well, what does a coward do? A coward runs. A coward evades. A coward doesn't like conflict. So an emotional coward runs from his emotions. And this just causes more problem because when you learn how to discuss your feelings with your child,
Yeah.
when you learn how to discuss your feelings with your mate, your coworker, or anybody involved in your life, it doesn't build up until one point you just blow
Yeah.
on people. So learning how to, number one, even be in touch with your feelings and understand how I'm feeling. Like with my child, if I know I'm already preheated from work, I don't need to check my child about something as soon as I get home from work. I'm already got some stuff going on.
Absolutely.
I recognize this is going on in me. I'll talk to you later because this is just not a good time. It's not going to come out right. So being in touch with my own feelings first and being okay with who I am and how I feel. And the other one is my feelings are important.
Absolutely.
As a provider, sometimes I'm always trying to make sure everybody else is okay. As long as the kids are okay, as long as this is paid, as long as this, but no, my feelings have to matter also. And I can't wait until I'm ready to blow to express my feelings. So even using the words I feel like I'm not being appreciated. I feel like you're not listening to me. I feel like you've already made up your mind. And sometimes when we learn how to express it that way, we don't put the other person immediately on defensive and create an argument. Because I'm expressing how I feel. I didn't say what you did.
Yeah.
I didn't say this is your fault. I just expressing to you how I feel about it. And a lot of times, the other person had no idea we felt that way. I've had some partners mad at me, and I'm like, man, what's wrong? That's all it was? You could have told me that 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, we could have been settled. We could have been squashed this. Yeah. And so, and I'm hearing you on that because first and foremost, I have to be honest with myself about how I feel in terms of me trying to express these feelings to somebody else. Whatever, and it may not necessarily be a bad thing. It could be a positive experience.
Well, let's go there. Sometimes you can be cracking jokes.
Yeah.
And as we crack jokes, we amp up the intensity level.
Yeah.
And then I hit you with a good one, but I didn't know that really hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. You're not laughing now.
Yeah.
Now you mugging me.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't realize it because of the laughter, and I'm ready to hit you with another one and another one. But if I had known that hurt your feelings, I would have taken that back right there on the spot. Because I was just joking.
Exactly.
But you took it personally.
Exactly.
And if I don't know you took it personally, I'll keep going and hit the gas.
Exactly. And that's another great point because now we're talking about the nonverbal communication because now we like I said, the body language, the facial expression, all of those things are communicating a feeling. And so now, being on the other side of that, now it's not just, you didn't come back with another joke. I noticed that, but you also noticed the demeanor changed.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that's also a part of the communication, the nonverbal part. But I want to switch gears for just a little bit, and let's get on the other side of that, because one thing that makes healthy communication or make it so effective is active listening. You know, because so many times, and it's easy to talk about the communication from the standpoint of arguments or what have you, because you know, like I know, in arguments, like the other individual, whoever's speaking at the time, the person that's listening is not truly listening. You're just listening to respond. You're not listening to understand. So now we're talking about effective communication. We're talking about truly listening to what the other person is saying. Not necessarily that we're going to agree with what they're saying, not necessarily that they are right, but it's getting our own feelings, our own thoughts out of the equation so I can try to understand where you're coming from. Yes. Because now, even though your words may be saying one thing, now we're talking about, again, the body language, the eye contact, the facial expressions. What is this saying? You know, like you come home to your significant other, man come home to his wife, baby, you know I love you with everything I got. Versus, baby, I love you with everything I got. You know, and so now she's going to hear something different based on that right there. So again, we just talking about the listening part, being able to get out of the equation. Go ahead. I see the wheels spinning.
I got a dad story because
okay.
Active listening is so important as a parent. Mm-hmm. It's so important as a man, as a dad, as a father. And I was dropping my kids off and had to drop my daughter off, but I was running late for work. And we passed by a cat that had been hit in the road. And I didn't care nothing about this cat. I'm looking at the time.
Yeah.
I got to drop you off. I got to drop him off. I got to get
Yeah.
back to work.
Yeah.
And my daughter said, "Oh no, poor kitty." And I'm like, "Man, forget that cat." But then she slouched down in her seat. She got quiet. I saw her body language in the rearview mirror. And I realized I had just crushed my daughter. And the active listening, because I heard her exhale, and I'm looking at the body language, and I'm realizing, oh, I got to clean this up.
Yeah.
I got to clean. Before she gets out of the car
Yeah.
and goes into school, I've got to clean this up because I've noticed I didn't mean to hurt her feelings, but then I had to realize she'd never seen a dead cat. This is her first time seeing a dead cat, and she likes kitties. And I just said, forget that cat.
Yeah.
Her father, this figure in her life, just disregarded her feelings entirely. And because I was on point and in tune, I caught that. And then I was able to communicate to her, Daddy was insensitive to you. And I apologized to her, which she wasn't used to me apologizing to her for one. And the other one was acknowledging your feelings matter.
Yes.
And when we can effectively communicate to somebody else, even in a disagreement, your feelings still matter to me. I might not agree with you. I might not even see it your way, but your feelings still matter to me. So now we can agree to disagree, and it don't have to go all the way out of control. If people would learn how to effectively communicate, the violence wouldn't be nearly what it is. The domestic violence wouldn't be nearly what it is. The emotional abuse wouldn't be nearly what it is. But if I'm tuned in to how my words affect you, and I care about how my words affect you, it changes how I communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, there's so many nuggets in there. And like I said, it is the value of seeing it from somebody else's perspective. You know, and I just think about how many times have I personally said something to someone and I didn't intend to hurt their feelings, but that's how they interpret it. And I'm saying, well, no, I didn't mean it that way. Once we get a chance to engage in conversation, no, I didn't mean it that way. I'm sorry I came off that way. You know, and I'm apologizing. But on the flip side, watch how interested we can be as human beings now. But on the flip side, somebody can say something to us, right? Now we know what we meant, and we apologize if I hurt your feelings. But on the flip side, we can hear somebody say something, and I'm gonna go off left, but I'm coming right back right quick. But we can hear somebody say something and be like, well, no, I heard what you said. You know, we're not giving them any grace because of the words that came out of their mouth. And I'm saying that to say this right here. You were able to dial it back and acknowledge your daughter's feelings. And I'm just saying that to say sometimes the same grace and conversation that we're willing to give ourselves, we have to be willing to give to somebody else. You know, because again, and you know, we talk about having toolboxes. Like everybody don't have the same tools in their toolboxes. So now people who are aware of this, now it becomes your responsibility. Parents, you know, so like now as a parent, I realize my child hasn't had the experience that I've had. So I got to get out of this place of whatever my age is, whatever my generation is, and I have to come to this person's world. And it's the same thing in communication. I have to get out of who I think I am for the sake of trying to understand and see it from your perspective so that we can come up together, you know, in our communication so we can be on the same page.
That's a hard fight because there were certain things, you know, being old school, you almost dared not even go there with your parents because you feared their reaction. You already knew what it was. And there were certain things that you weren't even allowed to talk back. You couldn't express yourself back. But many of us haven't done that with our kids to the same effect. You know, I saw some communication issues on the football field. And the guy had missed the winning punt. And the star players came over and tapped him and fist bumped him. And just said, it's all right. And you saw the young man wilt, but then you saw him hold his head back up. Because even though there wasn't a lot of talk, and it was only maybe a 5-second, interaction, it meant that much to him that 3 or 4 guys came over and just reinforced him. And I heard an interesting thing because if I, through my communication, show that I appreciate you, okay, when a house appreciates, it goes up in value. When something appreciates, it goes up in value. So when I appreciate you with my communications, I'm increasing your value. You feel better about yourself. I made you feel better as a person. And if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, because if I'm not helping appreciate a person, I need to just hold that. And sometimes with communications, the most important part of it is not me talking, but me listening to you more, because if I listen to you more, what I was getting ready to say, I'm not even going to say that now. Now, since I listened to you a little bit closer, what I was about to say, because I'm not listening to respond, I'm listening to understand. I heard what you said, but why did you just say that? What are you trying? Where are you going with this? Where is this coming from? Is it you upset with me or something else? Or wait a minute, you're not upset with me. You just trying to express how you feel to me, and you don't want me to give an answer. You just want me to listen to you. I can do that.
Yeah. Listening is the #1 tool in the toolbox. It is that list. But you brought up a great point in the football analogy, because interestingly, I was thinking about a basketball situation where a young kid on the team, he had maybe missed a free throw or missed a shot or something. So he's walking over to the sideline with his head down. And one of his senior teammates just walked up to him and just lifted his head up and patted him on the back. And like I said, his whole demeanor changed, his facial expression changed. And I'm saying that to say, like, when we're talking about effective and healthy communication, we talked about the listening, we talked about the empathy, we talked about a variety of things, but it's also teamwork.
Yes.
It has to involve someone else, and we have to be on the same page. Because like you said, when I'm listening to you, I am valuing you, not just your words, not just, I'm showing you that I care about you. And as I listen, like you said, I'm able to put my stuff aside. It's like, oh, okay, wait a minute. So I need to approach it this way because I care about you. And like I said, it is a team effort, man. And boy, you dropped so many nuggets on there, then.
Well, many people, if you ask them the top 5 things they want to change about themselves, a lot of people will say my communications, because they recognize I keep trying to do the right thing and it goes left.
Yeah.
I keep trying to talk to my woman and then it always seems to go left.
Yeah.
I try to talk to my son's mother, or I try to talk with a caseworker or the police, and they keep, okay, that's not happening by accident. So we go back to that word toolkit. I've got to add to my toolkit more than one way to express myself, because the way I've been expressing myself is not working for me in 2022. What it was in high school, what it was early in my life, I can't talk like, particularly in the marketplace, in the business world, in the office. And so I've got to grow in my communication skills. I'm not being fake or brand new, because I learned new ways to communicate. I learned more professional ways to communicate, or I learned more sensitive ways to communicate. I can't talk to the homies the same way I talk to a lady. That's not going to get me the results I need. So there's a reluctance on some people's part to grow in their toolkit of ways to be able to communicate, and that's not going to work.
Yeah, and man, this is why I love talking with you, bro. Cause you just feed me so much, and it just gets me all energetic and everything. But there are two things that really stood out to me in you making those statements. When you said 2022, and earlier you talked about how the communication was different with our parents. So first, I want to touch on when you said 2022. At some point, we were both in the 3rd grade, right? But we weren't supposed to stay in the 3rd grade.
Okay.
The same way we talked in the 3rd grade, we're not supposed, by the time we get to be 6th graders, 8th graders, 12th graders, see what I'm saying? Like, we're supposed to grow. And unfortunately, some people don't get that. So now when we grow in different areas of our life, including our communication skills, we change. We being fake, we being phony. No, we're supposed to improve, okay? So, and that takes effort. I mean, we have to practice this. But the other thing I want to go back to, we talked about the communication with our parents, how it was, back in the day versus now going forward. And this is no disrespect to our parents, but when we think about our grandparents, our great-grandparents, well, the educational process, technology wasn't as effective as used as it is now. It didn't even exist in their worlds, So I'm saying that to say they didn't have the tools to be able to communicate, because you couldn't ask certain questions because, hey, they've been trained to shut off their feelings and not be able to openly communicate. So no, it's what I said, plus you a child, you stay in a child's place. But being a child doesn't mean they don't have feelings. It doesn't mean they don't have questions that need to be answered. It doesn't mean they don't have things that need to be said. So I'm saying that to say, now as parents, we can't parent the same way, especially when you're talking about communication, the way that our grandparents did, our great-grandparents did it. It's not a matter of disrespect. It's a matter of respect. It's a matter of love. That's why we're trying to have healthy communication. That's why we take the time to put in the effort. Because like I said, we have to be intentional about this. You have to practice this. Go ahead, brother. I'm gonna let you.
No, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Because we have to parent differently now on this side of the pandemic. We never dealt with lockdowns when we were growing up. We didn't have social media when we were growing up. I explained to my oldest daughter, my oldest child, your younger brother isn't necessarily spoiled. It's just that you were my first. So I didn't know how to be a parent. There was you didn't come with a manual. So the way I talked to you growing up is different from how I talk to him, because he's my third child. I made a lot of mistakes with you, which why he's getting the benefit of the mistakes I made with you. And her understanding that and knowing that he's just not getting away with murder. But the way I communicate with my youngest is totally different from how I communicate with my oldest. I've grown in my toolkit. But now we have a group of people who don't know how to talk to each other. We play football and we play sports together, teamwork. But now you got a lot of kids who've never played on a team. They text instead of talk. They email, they inbox, Twitter, Instagram. This has a big effect on communications. You communicate in 40 characters. All right, that's not the same as knowing how to talk to somebody, how to ride a bike and talk with your friend. So we got a lot of kids who haven't grown up with this toolkit of knowing how to talk to friends. I saw some people at the table at dinner, and everybody at the table was on their phone texting. That could never have happened. And I won't let that happen because if we're here together in the same space, we need to be communicating with each other. All right, that can hold on until, and we understand there's emergencies in business and all that other stuff, but it's become such a different society that we don't talk to each other, we talk at each other a lot of times. And you can see the results of it.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And, as we said in the beginning of this segment, that there's so much ground to cover and there was no way we would get through it all. But I do want to share with you just a few ways to improve your communication skills. I think we touched on it already. Practice active listening. Practice active listening, like getting your feelings out of the way and truly trying to understand where the other person is coming from. Focus on nonverbal communication, your hand move, and I talk with my hands, so if you hold them down, I don't know, man, I might not be able to get a word out, but still practice the focus on the nonverbal communication, your hand gestures, your facial expressions, your body language. Manage your own emotions. And we talked about that a little bit too. We're talking about first you have to be honest with yourself on how you feel, and then try to get your emotions in check. Because if we don't govern our emotions will govern us, and then we'll make decisions and say things based on those emotions.
We got to open that door because you and I can be talking about, you're a Michigan fan, I'm a Michigan State fan. We can go into sports, we're going to raise our voice.
Absolutely.
But we're not mad or upset. We just raise our voice to make the point.
Absolutely.
But if I'm talking to a female, and I can be totally right, but because I just raised my voice at her, whatever I was about to say just went out the window.
Yeah.
I could be 150% right, but because I said it in a manner of raising my voice, it's like Charlie Brown, wah, 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 wah.
Yeah.
So I've got to make a conscious, deliberate choice to control my tone of voice and the level of my voice, because I'm talking to a lady and it's a trigger for her, me raising my voice at her. So that self-control part and being mindful of who my audience is. I can't talk to everybody the same way. But fellas, you've got to catch this, particularly when you're talking to your daughter or lady, and there's some guys this way also, but particularly with women, raising your voice changes totally the way what you were getting ready to say is going to be received.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Another thing I would say is, and I want to dive into that so much, but I know we got to move on, is ask for feedback. You know, ask this person, how did this make them feel? Ask them, I mean, there's no shame in asking. You know, because how else do we learn? How else do we improve? Another thing I would say is, and this may seem strange, but practice your public speaking, practice your communication, you know, practice it. Like, there is nothing that we do well at a certain stage in our lives that we first did not practice it. Tying our shoes, driving a car, you know, brushing your teeth. You think about the basic things that we do every single day. Communication is one of those things that we do every single day, and the only way to improve it is that we have to practice it.
You're making me laugh because I remember in high school practicing your phone voice. Practicing how you going to talk to a female before you call her.
Yes, sir.
You're in the mirror,
Yes, sir.
trying to
Yes,
be
sir.
smooth.
Yes, sir. But see again, and now we getting off topic a little bit, but again, that's what we did because we talked to each other. See, now you don't have to practice that because you can just type it out and text it. Y'all listen, we'll go on and on. We thank y'all so much for just tuning in. We thank you for going on this journey with us. And we are well aware that we did not cover all bases of communication, but hopefully we were able to share something that will be beneficial with you in any relationship that you have to communicate in. Thank you so much for your time.